Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I have a new gadget this time. Hopefully, ooh, my hair may have been bumping that. I don't know. I have a new gadget this time. I have a microphone. So hopefully my sound will be a little bit more consistent across the board. Anyway, welcome to my second video in my series, A Threaded Reverie. I really appreciate those of you who may have watched my first video, my first episode. I got some really nice feedback. I'm so not comfortable yet with talking on camera, so I'm trying to get better, trying to get more comfortable. And I thought I'd show off my current progress on this pattern test that I'm doing for Astronauty. This is her soon to be published pattern for the Mary Jane wrap top. This is the one that I showed in my first video where I only had like the very center back panel done with the marijuana leaf. So I don't know if you can see this if I do like this. That's maybe the back. And look at all my flowers back there. And there's Willie over there. Willie! Hey, buddy! Although it was quite cloudy, I wanted to beat the rain, and I went ahead and photographed Nana Volodymyr, whom I introduced in Chapter 1. This bush of camellias is in full beautiful bloom right now. I've been getting photos of all my nanas with the grass in the background, so I did that too. Here now, I'm showing you a bit of how I edit the photos just in the Photos app on my phone. I don't try to change how an item actually looks, I just try to make it look as though some professional photographer was able to set up a studio with the lighting just perfect. So now here I'll show you the before and after, flashing back and forth. I really do have awesome friends. My friend Amelia got me this mug, and I basically use it every day now. Anyway, I've come back in from outside. It's supposed to rain this evening, so I thought it would be nice to go get a little clip outside while I could. In my last video, the second I loaded it, it had a copyright notice on it. So somebody claimed it, and when I looked at it, it's funny because it said Il mio ben, which is one of the songs that I used in my video, and it said by Cecilia Bartoli, who is a huge opera star. And so she didn't write that piece. She has recorded it. It's an aria from an opera. And so I put in a dispute with YouTube for it. It's still pending. Apparently they have 30 days. I'm new to all this. They have 30 days to review it. They meaning the people who copyright claimed it. And so this is what I wrote. I thought I'd share it. This is my own live stage recording of myself singing the song Il mio ben quando verrà when I was a voice student in college. It is not a composition of Cecilia's. She does have recordings of it, but this is not one of those. It is an aria from the opera Nina, ossia La pazza per amore, which was composed by Giovanni Paisiello in 1786, 239 years ago. So I marked that it is in public domain. The composition is in public domain and the recording is my own. So I go on. I'm very flattered that the AI thinks I sound like Cecilia Bartoli, as she is a major opera star compared with me. I could even scrounge up the video of me performing it or supply photo evidence of the program from the recital it was a part of. So, anywho, I just thought that was really funny. Funny, flattering, also annoying. Because, I mean, if it could be monetized, that would be really cool. I mean, I don't really expect a whole lot right now. I'm brand new starting out at this. But anyway, the AI bots that try to detect if somebody is using Cecilia Bartoli's music, they think I sound like her. Google says, yes, Paisiello's opera Nina is considered to be in the public domain as it was published before January 1928. Guess what? I was actually able to get a sponsor for this video, and that sponsor is me. I'm a one-woman show. I do all my own crocheting, photographing, recording, editing, and promotion, so I have to take a moment to ask for your help. Please hit the like button, and then also hit the subscribe button so you'll get notified when I post a new video. Please share. Also, please consider becoming a patron for $5 a month or hopping on over to my Etsy page to see what unique crochet you may want to own for yourself or to give as a gift. Or if you are a crocheter yourself or know someone who is, I'm also working on building up the patterns section of my shop. You can also follow me on Instagram, BlueSky, and Facebook. Links for everything are all in the description box below. And finally, leave a comment with a question you'd like me to answer in my next video. Well, there we go. I still have a ways to go on the sleeves. I think I did about 8 rows there on the time lapse. And I thought I'd take a moment for some arts and crafts appreciation. So these earrings, my son made for me when he was like 4 years old. Isn't that sweet? My daughter helped him. She's a few years older, like 2 years older than him. She helped him with the little curling of the wire with some pliers, some jewelry making pliers. And I just let them play with the box of beads and jewelry making stuff that I have. And then I also happen to be wearing some real tie-dye. This shirt, it's like a sorry for the squeaky chair again. It's a handkerchief shirt, and I bought this when I went to Lark Camp in 2019. Lark Camp, if you don't know, which you probably don't, is a camp in the Mendocino woodlands, and it is for folk music and dance, and it's music from all over the world. So that was fun. Oh, I figured I'd show you the back a little bit now that I've gotten a little farther. I love it so far, and when the sleeves are long, it's going to look super cool. And then one more thing, it is my gorgeous Rapture of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. My partner gave me this for Christmas one year. He got it on Etsy. It's a print, and I love it. I sell a lot of Flying Spaghetti Monster merchandise. Actually, I'll show you. You've probably already seen this. I have Flying Spaghetti Monsters waiting to be finished because I always have to have them in stock. Okay, one other bit that I forgot to tell you about. One of the yarns I've been using in this scrappy project is this green. You can see it right here in this row. Let me see, where else is it? It's in the front in one row. So this is the last of a ton of this yarn. It's Red Heart, super saver, super cheap, not like the most comfy or luxurious acrylic yarn. And I had bought tons of this because I wanted to make a gigantic blanket. And I did make most of a gigantic blanket around 20 or more years ago. And I remember it was basket weave stitch, and I bought a whole bunch. I made a whole bunch of it, and then I needed to get more, and I made a whole bunch more. And I noticed that there was an obvious line like midway through the blanket where the dye lots didn't match. So it was one shade of green and then slightly different for that much more. And I couldn't stand it. So I undid it all. And I've had so much of this yarn lying around for 20 plus years. And I've used it sparingly in small projects here and there. And I believe this is the last of it. I may be wrong. There may be another ball in my cabinet, but I'm getting down to the wire, and I've included it in a lot of scrappy projects. I even made I made a whole big cactus pillow out of it. That was fun. I'll show a picture of that. I was really just trying to find a project to use some of this yarn in, and somebody bought it on Etsy. Anyway, these yarns, these old yarns in my stash hold memories. In 2023, a local writer, Mallory Mode, wanted to put together a little article about me and my crochet, and so she sent me a list of questions. I answered in very lengthy form, telling her all about different parts of my life. So I thought I would start with that as a jumping off point to tell you a little bit about myself. This isn't straight from her article. Some of this ended up in the article, some of it didn't. When I was a kid and we ended up in Los Angeles in family student housing, where I told you a little bit about in my last chapter, we didn't have a vehicle for a while. We walked, roller skated, biked, took city buses everywhere. We made friends with Mrs. Thomas, a homeless lady we always passed on my way to elementary school. It was really sweet. She would give me and my brother gifts. Like one year for Christmas, she gave us some packs of candy, and we would give her some packs of Long Johns and some cans of food and stuff like that. Eventually, my parents were fortunate enough to have friends who sold them a 1967 Volkswagen microbus for $400, which was still very cheap back then. It didn't have any back seats at first, and my brother and I would lie on the floor in the back on blankets and pillows with one long seatbelt strapped across us. In the summer between my 6th and 7th grade, we moved to Visalia, California. I ended up going to Fresno State with a major in graphic design. However, I had always been very involved in school choirs and orchestra, so I was also doing concert choir, chamber singers, and orchestra just for fun. After 1 year, in which fortunately I was focusing almost entirely on GE courses, I switched to music, vocal performance, at the encouragement of Dr. Anna Hamry, the choir director, and Helene Joseph Weil, who would become my voice teacher. And yes, I did say orchestra. When I was 11 years old, I had started playing the violin, and I was in private lessons for that all through school, all the way up until I graduated high school. And I just wanted to keep it up in college. I didn't feel like that was the right path for me to continue professionally on violin specifically, but I was having the encouragement from the orchestra people as well as the choral people, and I guess I just felt like focusing on voice. Since graduating in 2006, I have lived in Bakersfield, North Hollywood, Northridge, Santa Clarita, and now Madera. My jaunts in Southern California took me through a series of fun and odd jobs, including working as a cast member for a season at the Gaslight Melodrama, doing some community theater, stocking a warehouse for a carrot processing plant. I was even on a carrot flavor classifying committee, booking myself on TV shows and movies as an extra. My favorite brag is that I'm in an episode of The Office. Booking myself on whatever singing jobs I could at a few churches. One job was for Universal. They wanted a bunch of singers to bus around to the tourist areas of Los Angeles and dance around while singing the songs from Mamma Mia to promote the movie. Then I was working as a bank teller and was quickly promoted to sales and service associate, and then I had my first baby and stopped working any kind of regular job. While I was working as an extra, I almost always had crochet with me and sometimes would take orders from other extras. It was great being able to crochet and make some extra money while waiting around and holding with truly nothing better to do anyway. At Chase Bank, I really started getting orders. My coworkers would see me crocheting on my breaks and quickly had me filling up a notepad with a continuous list of orders. Someone had told me about Etsy at some point, and I only decided to start an Etsy store once my world started to spin a little less from the whirlwind that is having a newborn. I opened my Etsy store in August of 2011, and I was now a stay-at-home mom, but I dedicated myself to also making and selling as much as I possibly could. And it did seem to be working. Every year, I saw more revenue than the previous, until mid-2021, when for a few reasons my shop plunged into darkness. It has some things to do with how the Etsy algorithm works and some other life things that I had to be taking care of, like my kids being homeschooled and such. I could go further into detail about that and about how my shop wasn't really functioning on Etsy and what those reasons were. Regardless, I've put my mind to figuring out making my Etsy shop work, getting the algorithm to work for me, and building back up what had seemed to happen naturally with my shop the first time. It's 2 days later and we still have rain. It's a very light rain at this point. Before I show you my current work in progress, here's my view from my bedroom. My bedroom is my main workspace, in case you ever wondered why I'm always in my room. Here's Willie's little station. Here's my heating pad. I use that almost every day. I'll turn it on and I'll put it against the back of my chair, and I'll use it for when my back muscles get overly tightened and sore. This is what I'm currently working on. I've got a little row of yarns here, and I'm starting on a Nana. So this is actually going to be Nana Kamala. And the way I work it is I come up with a different plan each time I make a Nana doll. This time I've ordered the yarns from smallest ball to largest, and they kind of just go like this. Sometimes I take a picture of them so that I can put them in a bag and not have to keep them all spread out. But at the moment I have room for them to spread out. And then I'll do like a couple of the little balls of yarn until I run out of each one. And then I'll go back and do some top stitching on the line in between out of one of these fancier fuzzy yarns. I think that's kind of fun. So each Nana is different, and I kind of come up with a set of rules for myself on how I'm going to do that Nana. I keep a giant bag of stuffing next to me whenever I'm working on stuff that needs stuffing. I'm just going to show you all my mess. I've got a sign there that I made back when I was trying to sell in person at a market. It blew down a couple times, so I ended up gluing all the letters down. Here I've got the bag of scraps that you saw me working on in the last video, and the fluff that I never finished making into Rolags. I intend to do more of that. I just haven't done any more since the first bit that I showed you. Back there I've got some more of the scraps filled ornaments that I'll send out as free gifts next holiday season. Here I've got a pile of yarn scraps, a fresh new pile of yarn scraps since the last time you saw me cutting them up. And now what I'm doing is, as I make my scraps, I'm snipping them short as I go before I stick it in the pile. I think that will be helpful. Here's my tripod and my tripod's stand. This is just a box of greeting cards that I keep on hand with my lamp. And then the ring light. I have a whole story about this ring light I could tell you, actually. I discovered that I like the lighting on myself and in the room better if it's indirect light. So that's why I've faced it away. So it's sort of a reflected light from the walls. Oh, bags of yarn. Usually I have some bags of yarn lying around. This is the bag that I was keeping all the scraps in that are over there now. This bag has yarns for making flying spaghetti monsters. That's always an easy thing to grab if I'm going somewhere and I don't know what to grab and work on. And then this is just a bunch of yarns I need to put away. This bag is actually designated for stuff for making my mouth puppets, because I make a lot of those too. And you may have seen this sitting over here. I have this completely finished and ready to photograph. This is the Mary Jane wrap top that I made as a pattern test for Astronauty. You've seen me making that, and I'll be photographing that tomorrow morning, hopefully, because there should be some sunlight. Let's go to Fluff Town. I figured we could do a little more fluff making. Make sure you can see this, maybe. And hopefully my mic is on. Yes, I'm still getting used to all this. I just started to record a second ago and I didn't have my mic going. And I think the sound hopefully will be better, where you're going to hear the board not quite as loud maybe as my voice. It might be about the same volume though, I don't know. But while I'm doing this, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my setup here where I'm living, in case you were wondering about why I'm always in my room. It's because it is my main workspace. And that is because when I was going through a divorce, when I started my divorce process back in 2021, my parents and I all liked the idea of going in on a house together. So they actually sold their house, and in the divorce process, we sold our house. And my parents and I found this house, which is way bigger than they would need, way bigger than I would need, but it's kind of perfect for a double family house. There are 2 dining rooms, 2 living rooms, even 2 master bedrooms. So, you know, I share this living space, the common room areas living space, with 2 other adults that live here. And when my partner is here, it's 3, and he's here a lot. And that's what we want. We want him here a lot. And 2 kids that are basically teenagers. One is literally a teenager and one is not quite. So it is kind of just handy for me to have my space, my workspace, be my own room if I kind of want, you know, total control of the space. So that's why I'm always in my room. And hopefully you can hear me over all this noise I'm making. Floof. It's floof. And to remind you, this is the bit I spun last time. I didn't show you plying it, but I did thread ply it, which means that I've taken the strand that I initially twisted and I twisted it the opposite direction with a basic crochet cotton thread. That's the thread you see in there. And it really gives it much more structure, kind of gives it a little cool bit of a textured look. So the other thing I was thinking I could tell you while I work on this, well, that works really well. If you're ever wanting to do this, these fuzzy yarns, they don't really want to come apart with the brushes, it seems. But if I just lay it on the tines and pull it through, it seems to tear pretty easily. That's pretty good. I'll just incorporate it with everything else though. So the other thing I was going to tell you is I was mentioning that there's a story that I have about that ring light. So back in like 2020, I received a box of cookies. And now this was like, or it was 2021. Yeah, it was like right around when our divorce process was starting. I received a box of cookies from, I think, Crumble, like really fancy cookies. It was like a cookie delivery to our door. And it just had a note that said, "For the beautiful family," or something like that. And I was a little bit weirded out. The delivery guy said, "Oh, didn't you order this?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You don't know who it's from?" I said, "No." I said, "Please take it." And he said, "You don't want to accept it?" And I said, "No. First of all, I don't eat sugar at all. And second of all, it just kind of weirded me out. You know, for the first time in a really long time, I was living not alone, but single, with 2 kids in the house. And it, you know, it felt funny. If it was a neighbor or something like nice, I would think that they would want to be known. I would think that they would want to come by and say hi or something. So anyway, I turned it away. I didn't think too much of it. And then later, I got in the mail a shipment from Amazon, and it was like an art print. I still have it tucked away in a drawer because I don't know what to do with it. I feel kind of bad just throwing it away, but it's like an art print of like a pretty girl with dragonflies, and it's printed on like metal, you know, like one of those tin pieces of art. And no note as far as who it came from. So I started getting I immediately thought of the cookies. I started getting a vibe of stalker? I don't know. But then I also thought it's possible that it's just like an Etsy customer. So if you're watching this and you are like a really pleased Etsy customer and you just wanted to send me a thank you gift, and here I am thinking stalker, I apologize. You could let me know, and then I will let everybody else know in the next video. And then another incident happened. A big package came from Amazon. This time, it wasn't addressed to me, but this was to our new house here with my parents living here as well. And it was addressed to my mom, and it was this ring light. No note as far as who it was from. None of us had ever looked into buying a ring light. I wasn't even thinking about doing well, I had thought about doing YouTube, but I wasn't shopping around to do anything like YouTube then. So once again, we were baffled. Once again, I had those thoughts of stalker. And once again, we put it away into storage and kind of just forgot about it again. Then one day, and this is the thing that made me report to the police, my neighbor came over to my house and told me that there was a car that had pulled up right alongside my house and was taking pictures, like aimed like kind of over our back fence, side back fence. And that's when I kind of went, wow. I told my neighbor all these things that were starting to make me feel like there was like a stalker going on, maybe. And so I did. I called the police, and they came right away. And I just told them everything about the gifts. They took a report, so it is in the report if anything else happens. They looked around the neighborhood for the car and they couldn't find it. So yeah, I don't know. If anything else happens, I've at least documented that stuff so far. And I mean, I've got a ring light to use. Now that I could actually use one, I guess, thank you. If it was a stalker, I guess, thank you. I don't know. I kind of think it's more likely just like a fluke accident at Amazon. And it's very possible that the person taking the pictures, actually, it's probably pretty likely that the person taking the pictures was someone staking out my car, because some weeks or months after that, I never even connected the two until just now as I'm thinking about it. So I don't know exactly how far apart this happened. But I drive a Prius, and Priuses are, or at least used to be, one of the favorite cars for people to steal the catalytic converters out of. And so that's what happened to my car. Right in our driveway, the catalytic converter was stolen out of it one night. So now that I think of it, the person taking the pictures likely was, what's it called? Scoping out the place, scoping out my car, the situation where I park. But they were taking pictures like over the fence, like towards the house, not like towards, according to what she said, not towards where my car was parked. I don't know. Anyway, I guess I've given you another story time while I do this fluff. So I'll keep doing fluff off camera, I think. You don't need to keep watching this, probably. This is quite satisfying, though. But it is time consuming. Look how pretty. All right. I'll catch you back. All right. I have a pretty good amount of fluff here. So I'm going to see how many roll eggs I can get out of it. And we'll try spinning it again. And now you'll see me after having practiced spinning a little bit more. Because the only time I've shown you any spinning was my very first time ever. I'm trying to be careful to not brush my fingertips over the top of the the little tines this time, because last time my fingertips were all rough and scratched up. It didn't actually break the skin down to, like, I didn't bleed. I didn't bleed at all. And I think I'm going to be a little more careful this time to get the fuzz on in small amounts at a time, and then brush it down so that maybe it forms into a little bit more of a compact sheet. It's hard to not brush your fingertips over the top. It's really not a problem. It wasn't a problem before. My fingertips healed up just fine right away. Okay. Oh, my daughter came in and I showed her how this works. And she picked out a bunch of pink specifically and then brushed it out for me. And then she said, "Mom, when you get to the pink, you'll know that one was me. So this one was her." I told her it's going to just get mixed up with everything else. My kids get excited for me. It's really sweet. When I get excited about something with my business, I tell them and they get excited with me. They really, really are my biggest cheerleaders. Ooh, aside from maybe Ryan. He also ties them for biggest cheerleader. I love you, honey. Sorry, mushy gushy. I'll stop that now. He really is the best partner, though. Ooh, look how pretty that is. Blue and teal and purple. I'm trying to be a little bit more careful about, there are still chunks of yarn in here that are quite still put together. Like this piece right here. I'm trying to make the whole thing a little bit softer, a little less. I realized in the first video I said lumpy bumpy so much, and that sounded so dorky to me. I'm sorry. Sorry, I sounded so dorky. I will try to sound more cool. Ooh. Okay, this part is so satisfying. It's maybe, oh, and then this is a chunk that, like, from the original that I spun when I was plying it. By the end, this was like the last end bit of the yarn that I had spun. It had kind of fallen apart there right at the end, and the thread that I was plying it with started to get tangled, and I just said, forget it, I don't care. That can just go back into the next batch. So that's what I'm doing here. These bits are going back into the next batch. And it looks like by kind of pulling it apart, it kind of just lost all of its twist anyway, so it's fine. It's very loosey-goosey and fluffy. Okay, so now I've gone from lumpy bumpy to loosey-goosey. I'm sorry, I'm a dork. I'm kind of, as I'm laying it down, I'm kind of using the tines to kind of help brush out any last little bits that are kind of still stuck together. This piece could go, this piece could use a little bit more tearing apart, I think. Maybe. And it can just incorporate to how it is, I think. And I don't know, are we supposed to fill it up to like the tops of the tines? Probably just however much I can get on there is what I'm thinking. Here's more of that original spun yarn. Oh, getting fluff in my nose. I'm kind of combing out a piece here. That is, no, that works. It's kind of breaking apart. Ooh. Well, no matter what, I think this process is just going to have to be more forgiving with the texture that you end up with, regardless of how skilled or unskilled you are with these techniques, with all these different types of fibers. And especially a lot of these fibers are like acrylic, rather than starting with like a whole, what do you call it? Piece of wool. Actual wool. The thin fibers that I see these people spinning, by the way, Jillian Eve spinning, I put her on the screen in text form in the last video. I will say her channel out loud this time. That channel has been so fun to binge. I'm learning stuff, but I'm also just entertained. She's a sweetheart. I recommend to go follow her if you're interested at all in trying what I'm doing here, because she's the person to learn from, not me. She uses, I mean, she does all sorts of fun experimental things, of course, for sure, but she's the real deal. Getting, you know, fiber from the animals, from the farms, and spinning gorgeous, gorgeous yarns. And she does weaving, and she does knitting, and she does crocheting. So shout out to Jillian Eve. She has a YouTube channel. Oh, I was just thinking that looks pretty full, but there's like an empty spot here, so let's see. There's some funky fibers right here. Yeah, some of these really didn't get taken apart very well. That's okay. I want all of my yarn to look equally as ugly as my first spin. I'm trying to think of what I want to do with this yarn when I'm finished. If you have any ideas, let me know. I kind of was imagining that what if I just continue to spin my scraps little by little as like a really, really long-term project. And then little by little, I can start working on like a blanket or a sweater, whatever it is, it's going to need to be a really big, you know, fat, chunky kind of stitch with a big fat crochet hook, because the yarn is so chunky and irregular. So there you have it. Let me take the sticks out if I can. Come on. Did I wrap up too tight? Okay. There you go. And they always present them like this in those spinning videos. Look at a beautiful little rolag. It's a rolag. That's the only term I can remember in spinning, other than drop spindle. Okay, let's spin it. I literally just rolled what I had made before into a ball. And because I plied it, what you could see on the outside of the wrapped up spindle was the first rolag that I had spun, which means it was my very first beginner spin. I got a little better at it, and I think it looks even prettier in the ball, because after wrapping it up, now this stuff on the outside is the slightly more experienced stuff. So there you go. And also, I'll show off my spindle. It has a Flower of Life design. It is Snyder, and I got it on Etsy, and I'll put up on the screen the Etsy shop I got it from, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Okay, so let's go here. Let's see if I remember how to do this, since it has been like a week or so. I'm just putting it on the hook, a little loop of it, a little tuft of it, and I've started to spin it so it starts to grab, so it doesn't fall apart right away. Okay, so now I'm just going to hold it here, give it a spin, And I'm going to hold the twisted section and I slowly let draft out the fibers for it to catch. Ooh. Wow, this, maybe I could actually get this more refined than I did the previous time. Because look how thin that is. And the rain has started again. I hope my mic is still on. Yes, okay, good. I am so new to all this YouTubing stuff, so I've recorded more than a few segments before realizing my mic wasn't on. Okay. Whoa. Let that spin up into the, there we go. Too soon. You gotta start like drafting it and letting the twist come up into the drafted section, little by little. Otherwise, whoops, it just locks it in place. So one thing I learned, this is a term that I do remember, called park and draft. Park and draft? Yes, park and draft, which means this is the only way I've done it so far because I'm super beginner. Is I spin and then I park it in between my legs. You could also park it like under your arm or something, and then you can draft out the yarn. Let me see if you can see that if I lean forward. Watch. See how the twist just goes up into it? Oops. Spin, park, and then at the very top I untwist it a little bit so that I'm able to draft. Draft, let it go. Draft, let it go. And see, the twist just comes right up. That is so satisfying. Parking, oops. And look, it came apart, but if I just hold the fluff together and let the twist come up, watch. It just twists together. Sorry. For my dog. It's okay, Willie. He barks at everybody. If somebody suddenly starts speaking in the house, he starts barking. Okay. I think I did this wrong last time. I think what you're supposed to do, because after rewatching some more spinning videos after I did, oh, and then see if you wanted to ply it with itself, you can see kind of what it would look like by letting it twist upon itself. And I could do that. Now, I took it off of the hook on top, and I'm going to wrap it around itself down here. So it's not going to stay attached to the hook on top. And there I'm winding it. Now that I've got a good length of it on the spindle, and back up again. And while you still have some length, you want to bring it back up to the hook. I'm talking like I'm teaching you, and I'm not trying to teach you. I'm like teaching myself. So I hope you're enjoying this, but once again, go watch Jillian Eve. Or there are plenty of other YouTube spinning teachers as well. I've found several. Ooh. And I've also learned, it seems there aren't exactly one way of doing all the different things. Different people have their preferences, and it seems like the spinning world is a bit like the crocheting world, and I'm not a knitter, but I'm guessing somewhat like the knitting world, where you know, there's room for individual expression and taste and preference. Oh, and now I don't freak out when it just comes apart because I know it's just going to spin up together. It's amazing, like how much length you can get out of one funky chunk of fluff like I have here. Okay, this needs a lot more twist. Oops. Let me know in the comments if this is at all interesting or entertaining, or if you don't really want to see any more of this spinning, if this is taking up too much percentage of my video. I find this fascinating, but I'm also right here in person and doing it and making use of all these scraps. I kind of decided I would keep working through that initial pile of scraps that I have because it's way more, I would say, varied in terms of like lengths of yarn. There's still some things in there that are a little bit longer, whereas the current pile that I have over here going, I'm intentionally cutting them all like to like 1 to maybe 1.5 or 2 inches as I trim the yarns that I need to trim while I'm making my projects. Just so that if I'm wanting some semblance of consistency in my yarn that I'm making, might as well just make all that at once and keep a separate batch going of the new yarn scraps that I'm saving. And when I get to the point, because this is time consuming, it definitely is, and I make more scraps. I make scraps, I should say, faster than I can keep up with in terms of the preparing and the spinning. Oh, I kind of messed that up. I can't draft it because it's totally locked in place. Let's see. Can I undo that? Rip it. Aileen, just rip it apart. I think it's okay. All right, there. Just give it a little twist. Ooh, ooh. You know what? Yep, yep. Ooh. I'll have to show my daughter because I can see her handiwork. The pinks. To me, this is like, oh, so magical. I could just, if anybody wanted to just pay me to do this, that would be cool. Give me your scraps. Pay me an hourly wage and you'll get a skein of yarn for a day's work. Okay, I think that's kind of long. I think this is more of a proper winding it up technique than what I was doing before. Wrapping my arm around it rather than just turning the spindle. Leave like that much. It's looking prettier than the first time because I think I'm getting, I feel a little bit more calm and a little less haphazard. Keep biting my lip while I'm doing this. I guess that's a concentration thing, maybe. The fluff is going to go in your nose if you try this. Just warning you. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh. We're in a chunk that's like, it's so, any of the chunks of yarn that didn't fully get brushed out, that's where it gets really hard to draft. But that's okay. That's where we end up with some cool, some cool texture, I think. And it's really just cool that I'm using my scraps like this, I think. Ooh. I'm taking what would be a waste product of what I do and turning it into a full-on kind of, in my opinion, kind of luxury material. I don't know. Now, if I really wanted to get fancy and like separate out colors, I could probably make this look really, really much cooler. But I'll show you as I roll it back up. Oop, I lost a chunk to the floor. That's all right. I'll add it in at the end. Ooh. Sometimes I have to pull really hard to draft it because it's, like I said, it's those fibers that I didn't spend the hours necessary to brush them out completely and fully. And that's okay with me, because who do I have to please? Only myself. And I think everything is beautiful, so I'm very easy to please. I really am. I'm like that with my crochet too. I really like doing scrappy projects. And even if I go so randomly with the yarns and the colors, it kind of doesn't matter. I'm always fascinated, and I always think it's awesome. I always think it looks beautiful. I'm very easy to please, I think. I just like a lot of color. Ooh. And I get overwhelmed with having to decide as well. So that's why I like the scrappy random stuff projects, because I like a lot of colors. And it's hard for me to decide if left to completely to my own devices. It is always quite relieving when a customer knows what they want. They know they want these two colors and that's it. And then I go, okay, so here's 20 of this color and here's 20 of that color. Which ones do you want? Oh my gosh, it is so pretty. This is the stuff that fell down. Hang on to that. It's all good stuff. Okay. Okay. Whoops. Ah. I keep doing that, pulling it apart, but then it just goes right back together again when the twist comes up, and it's all right again. I kind of wanted to try to get the camera so that you could see higher up, more up and down. But then as soon as I did that, I really just wanted to get closer again so I could easily show you, so you could actually see what it's doing. Because I know sometimes I go working up higher and maybe you can't see my face most of the time, but that's okay. You don't need to see my face most of the time. Whoa. Watch the twist go into it there. Whoop. Oops. Okay, whoa, I need more twist. Okay, I've got a lot of twist. You want to watch? Watch. Oh, maybe I've run out of twist now. Oh, I'm almost at the end of the roll lag, though. Oops, I thought I was holding it for you to see. There we go. This time, eventually when I get around to thread plying it, I'll show you that part too. We'll see, maybe this video, maybe the next one. But I'll finish this roll lag for now. Last time I was able to get 3 roll lags onto the spindle before I plied it. So this is just one so far. I'm just about finished with this one. I've got this other little bit of fluff I can add in now. Ooh, look at that. We got a stray. Take it off the hook. And I'll roll it right on up. And I'm bumping the lamb. Okay. Some areas are so thin. It's like truly an art yarn.